And we should be live. Going to double check just in case. And yeah, so unless YouTube is lying to me, I am talking to all of you right now. And how you guys doing? This is a low latency stream. We're testing this just to see how much worse the video quality is right now. As it's been for actually the past 6 or so live streams. We've been streaming from the Sony camera to an AverMedia capture card. And look, in hindsight, like the capture card is only a 1080p 60 capable capture card, and I regret that because I would much prefer 4K 60 just for those who have the ability to stream at that rate, to watch the streams. So yeah, I'm kind of, yeah. Someone says post the deals. How about checking the video description? They're already down there. You should probably look at that first. We are right now ready to dive through these. Again, if you just want to look at the links, those are just the ones that I found. I use Newegg and Amazon primarily. Those are two of the bigger tech sources here in the States for us tech enthusiasts, I guess. But I'm going to talk about my rationale as to why I chose those parts, and also talk about some things that I expect we will see in the next few days, possibly, because these deals tend to extend about a week or so long, unless, of course, we run out of stock of certain items, which happened actually. The best deal that I found so far was, I believe it was a Ryzen 7 1700 for like $150 or something along those lines. Very, very cheap. We're talking below Core i5, comparable Core i5 CPU prices, which is just, at this point, it's just laughable. Like, AMD can and will do these things in the future, and Intel just takes it. Like, I don't know if they care, if they wish they could drop prices. According to many sources, they still can't. They're still struggling with inventory just because of the 12 nanometer fabrication being consumed by both chipsets and CPUs at this point. We have videos talking about this stuff, but you guys are here for the deals, so we're going to jump into that good stuff. And if you guys find anything as well, we have Kafasa's one of the moderators here in the chat. If we have issues posting some links, I know YouTube like completely bans links for some reason in chat boxes, but if you guys find some good stuff, let us know. Even if you don't want a link, just tell us the product and where you found it, and we might even include it here on this live stream, just because I'm open to sharing any of the goodies you guys found online. I don't think that we should keep these secret, even though, you want to be the first to the product. I totally get that. Just make sure that you buy the product if you want to buy it before you post it on this chat or any other place that might have a little bit of publicity, because these things, the inventory levels are pretty much on the DL. You don't know how many they have in stock, and if 10 people buy them, boom, that could be it. This could be the 10 people that get it at a good price. So what I'm going to do is switch to, I'm going to make sure that this actually works. I'm going to switch to my desktop here, and you guys are going to see the first deal in our list. So y'all let me know what's going on. Thanks, Bazinga. Totally appreciate that that hair comment. I know it's bad. Like, here's how I know when I need a haircut. When I can't brush it and it do what I want it to do anymore, that's pretty much that's the limit for me. Anyway, I know this is kind of a weird window here. You're looking at Amazon Prime. I have this zoomed out for these three. This is something I showed in the Black Friday deal video, but you can see 64 gigs for an SD card like this. $10.99, so basically a freaking steal. 32 gig card, again, pretty similar transfer rates, reads and writes. $6, like, it's kind of a sin to not purchase something like this for $6 if you're in need of any SD card at all. Actually, I bought two of these here, the 128s. You can see here, $20. And if you have Amazon Prime, that's $20 shipped. So if you guys are into some, super transferable storage drives like SD cards, maybe you want one for your phone or for a camera. I'm actually using the two 128s for my cameras. One of them's actually in the camera right now. Then this would be a sweet drive for, I think, the reads here up to 100 megabytes per second reads, and then 90 megabytes per second writes. That's plenty for 4K 30. That's what I do here. So by the way, if the chat box is like in the way of anything, I'm sure it will be. I can get rid of that. So just yell at me if you can't see anything that you are interested in noticing on screen. Scrolling down now to the second link, we have a Sapphire RX Vega 64. I'm gonna check I'm watching the live stream kind of live just to see if I'm overlapping anything. I think I'm hiding the price. Maybe I might be. No, I'm not. Okay. All right. Cool. So yeah, this is. it's a Vega 64 card, and think what you want about Vega. I do think that these cards were largely flops for a number of reasons. I think inventory levels, the fact that these came out like right before everything just hit the fan with regards to graphics card prices and the mining craze. These cards are still viable for gaming. They definitely are. Vega 64 is comparable to a GTX 1080 or even to a degree an RTX 2070 if you want to look at it from a Turing perspective. And right now, $400 is pretty sweet. The only thing is, though, you're getting the blower style card here. This is a Sapphire branded blower style card. This is basically a reference cooler for all intents and purposes. So, actually, this comes with a backplate. I did not check if this one came with a backplate. It does, though. Most cards of this caliber are going to have backplates. Just, I don't know why you wouldn't want to have a backplate at this price. But you can see here, 3 DisplayPort outs, single HDMI out. That should be pretty run-of-the-mill at this point, especially for a higher-end card. And you guys know Vega 64. I have my review of Vega 64 on the channel. I wasn't too pleased with the price of Vega 64 when it came out with respect to what we were getting from a GTX 1080, right, or even a GTX 1070. I do think that Vega 64 is a slightly it's an alternative. It really is, because you could get a GTX 1080 for basically the same price at this point. So if you want to support AMD, if you appreciate AMD software, then that might be the route you take. Honestly, if I had to choose, my choice would be probably a GTX 1080. Just because I'm more familiar, again, with NVIDIA software, I'm familiar with GeForce Experience. This isn't me touting NVIDIA. Believe me, I have my own issues with how NVIDIA released this latest generation of cards. But if I had to choose, just to be perfectly open with you guys, it would be a 1080 for me. Just because, again, I think there's a little more value in a 1080. I think some games do run considerably better on a GTX 1080 than the Vega 64 counterpart, and 1080s are they're really power efficient and very quiet. So if you don't like blower style cards, you definitely don't want this one. Now we're gonna switch on over to, whoops, I just completely butchered that one. Let me see. Let me make sure that I swapped it correctly. You should be looking at now. Yeah, okay, cool. An Acer Gaming Series 24-inch 144Hz 1080p panel. Now, I want to disclose, I should have done this up front. All the links down below, there's our affiliate links. Again, I've talked about this in my last video with regards to how we get paid from affiliate links. It's a very small percentage, usually no more than about 3%. So if you click on any of those links and you navigate anywhere and you end up buying something, we get a small commission for basically leading, the buyer to the seller, for kind of, I guess, in a way, working as a middleman for the exchange there. But all those links are to products that and we'll go through all of these, that I have at least some degree of hands-on experience with, or maybe have hands-on experience with a derivative of that product. So, this one is like a killer deal. In my opinion, I think that Lisa's going to give me a haircut. Basinga, gosh. In my opinion, this is a heck of a deal. I'm using an Acer 4K panel right now. I really like Acer screens. I think Acer makes some of the better screens out there, just with my experience with these panels. Now, I'm not too sure about the, I'm pretty sure this is a TN panel. I want to say it's a TN panel. What's funny is if they don't say that it's an IPS panel, then it's probably a TN panel. And it's not something you typically just promote, because TN is the usually regarded as the more obsolete screen technology. Let me see. Let's just go to specs here. And sure enough, TN. So there you go. So if you're against TN, I totally get it, right? I mean, you have the right to decide what you think is good and what's not. But I think TN's a great compromise, actually a very reasonable compromise for a $170 144 hertz panel, even in the 1080p resolution. 1080p at 24 inches about as high as I want to go. I would say if you get up to 27 inches, 1440p is going to be your sweet spot with respect to pixel per inch densities, right? Basically, your ability to discern individual pixels becomes more apparent the larger the screen size gets if your resolution is fixed, right? So when you jump up from 24 to 27, there's a noticeable size increase there. And if you're sitting roughly 2 to 3 feet from your monitor, I would say that the jump in resolution from 1080 to 1440 is justified. But in the case of of a 24-inch panel, I think 1080p is just a sweet spot, especially considering this price. And there is, I know, let's see, Cyber Nuance just pointed out that there is a $20 promo as well. So if you guys use the CMAD101 promo code, then you'll also get an extra 20 bucks off. So that means you can get this monitor for $150. If you have Newegg, like the equivalent of Newegg Premier, I think is what it's called. I used to have it when I was a student, but I order more stuff from Amazon, so I just have Prime. But if you have Premier, whatever it's called, then you can get free shipping on that as well. I think it's free 3-day shipping for Newegg. But shipping here, let's just assume we're going to okay. Oh, shipping is... Oh, maybe they're going to tell us after I enter all my stuff. Anyway, I don't expect shipping to be too expensive here. And yeah, I think that's a really great monitor. Again, check out the link below. If you're interested in that monitor, let me know if you have it. This is probably something I'll actually buy myself just to review, but I'm very confident, again, in Acer panels. I'm not going to recommend something I think is absolute crap. You guys wouldn't trust me again when it comes to recommending and all that good stuff. But I think it's a great deal. Just on paper alone, the reviews look pretty good, and we'll see. Logitech C922X, C922. It probably sounded weird to say C922. Anyway, if you guys are interested in streaming at all, if you're just a little... maybe you're a little hesitant with regards to the amount of money it's going to cost to get started in the streaming business, if you will. Maybe you want to stream to Twitch. You don't have many viewers. Maybe let's say you get 5-10 viewers, right? Or you expect to get that much when you start out. That's still a pretty good amount if you get those concurrent. But even if you're 100, 200 concurrent, a C920 or a C922X in this case is a perfectly viable camera, because here's my rationale behind that. When I decide, let's say I want to play PUBG, right? And I want my viewers to watch the game, not necessarily me, then what I'm going to do is shrink my camera window down on that display screen that you guys see live, to a very small corner. Let's say I put it on the bottom left corner or bottom right corner, wherever the map isn't with respect to PUBG. You guys aren't going to notice that I'm using, let's say, 720p 60 FPS or 1080p. You might notice the frame rate difference there, especially if you're upscaling the frame rate to 60 if you're playing at 30. But if you're going to be streaming a game, I expect you'll be streaming at 60 FPS, 60p, whatever. So I don't think that the resolution necessarily matters, and I don't think you need a super high-end camera with a capture card to give yourself a really crispy look on screen, because nobody cares about necessarily you. They're looking at what you're doing on screen. If you're going to be playing, if you're going to be a Twitch streamer, Twitch gamer, then in my opinion, yeah, that's what I would go with, the C922X. And actually, Lisa uses the C920, and the C922 is the one that kind of isolates you. It deletes your background. I'm not sure how effective this is. I've seen many people use it, and it looks to be a pretty efficient way to do it without needing a green screen. So that technology is pretty cool. And again, look, out of like roughly 10,000 customer reviews, about 4.3 stars out of 5. I would say for all three of these here, that's a pretty good ratio. And Lisa just came in, and because it's a pretty good ratio, and I don't expect you guys to just rely on reviews. I told you guys not to do that. She's standing behind the camera now. And when you got 10,000, that's a pretty good sample. And again, we have testimonials here, like Lisa uses the C920. How good's your webcam?
Good.
It's good? Yeah, so she likes it. And if Lisa likes it, you know, she's not a big Twitch streamer, but she wants to get big, and she's been trying to get back into it. You gonna get back into it?
I'm gonna get back into it.
She's gonna get back into it.
Next week.
Next week. Yeah, next week. I just realized that nobody saw you because I was showing the screen the whole time.
Oh.
Sorry. Anyway, yeah, I think this one's really good. Just to kind of sum this one up, $50 is pretty cheap, pretty entry-level camera, but it will get the job done. So if you're into Twitch stuff, then there you go. Moving on now to the Crucial MX500 2.5-inch SSD. This is a typical internal SSD. These right here are pretty baller because they only cost roughly $60. Now I did see a couple others. I saw another SSD. I believe it was from, I want to say it was from ADATA, and ADATA had one for $59. So I mean, SSDs right now are super cheap. That's really what I want you to take away from this. This isn't strictly a Black Friday deal per se. You can see this one used to be $82.99, but I mean, come on. So $65 is really good. This again probably will last through Black Friday week and maybe into Christmas time. But if you are in need of a roughly half terabyte drive or so, then $64.99 in my opinion is a freaking good price. That's what I'll say about it. And then if you want to drop down to a 250 gig, good for an OS and maybe a couple Steam games, Adobe Suite, whatever. Look at that, just over $40. And again, this is on Newegg, so if you guys are interested, check out that link below. Let's see, they do have the M.2 version of this. I'm curious. Yeah, but see, the M.2s, I mean, these are going to be the same. These are just the SATA M.2s. So essentially the same reads and writes, just a different form factor. Again, these would be connected directly to your motherboard, so you won't actually have a 2.5-inch drive sticking out anywhere. Not that they're very big or intrusive, just a little bit of flexibility there. Looks like a $10 difference, so it's up to you. But this is just one of the ones I found when I was scrolling through. And if you guys have any, yeah, I see some, Leslie just said that, MX 500s, 860 EVOs, Ultra 3Ds, they're all really good brands. I trust Crucial. Crucial is one of the ones that I do trust. Crucial's a Micron brand. I also trust Samsung, definitely. And then I trust ADATA. Probably those are my big three when it comes to SSDs. I've had many drives from all three of them, and they all worked out very well. I actually haven't had a single drive die, and you guys know how many computers we build with tons of drives and stuff, so that's just a first-hand testimonial there. Up next on the list, again, you can find these links down below. This is the Team Group T-Force Delta RGB RAM. These modules are pretty sick. I actually have, I've not used this specific kit. I've used the Nighthawk DDR4 modules. Basically the exact same modules, they just have a different heatsink on them. I'm pretty sure these are all Samsung B-dies. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say they are. I remember them telling me at Computex, if I'm not mistaken, that these are Samsung B-dies. I'll have to double check on that. But very reliable. Again, these are pretty fast modules too. You can see we're at, 3,000 megahertz. This is optimal for if you're going to run these with a Ryzen platform. 3,000 megahertz is pretty much where you start to see a severe diminishing returns curve play out. You jump from 2133 megahertz to about 2666. You see a huge reduction in latency with respect to the Infinity Fabric, and that of course speeds up everything, right? Your entire system feels more responsive, especially in game. And then if you jump up to 3000, the difference between that and 2666 isn't nearly as big as from 2133 to 2666, but it's still a noteworthy jump, I would say. You'll get a few extra frames in most games, and so if you're curious about that, this is why I would justify a faster kit of RAM. In a nutshell, for Ryzen platforms in particular, Intel doesn't really matter. Most applications, including games, aren't going to be frequency dependent with respect to RAM. And honestly, games aren't dependent in general with on the frequency of RAM. It's just because of the way that AMD ties the Infinity Fabric into timings, RAM timings, and RAM frequencies. That's why games are indirectly performing better with faster RAM kits on Ryzen platforms. But just make sure if you go in with a Ryzen 1 platform, let's say 1700 or 1600, 1600X, any of those chips, they're going to be pretty stubborn, most of them, when it comes to overclocking running XMP out of the box. I suggest updating your BIOS to the latest version if possible, and just kind of playing with it from there. You might not be able to enable XMP at all. I would not be surprised. None of my Ryzen samples were able to run XMP out of the box, so you might have to do some manual tinkering with your RAM frequencies and timings. That's always a pain. Overclocking memory sucks, especially when you're going past spec, but if you can get it again to 3000, that's pretty much your sweet spot. So yeah, these look really good. I can attest to this firsthand. The RGBs are very diffused. They look really good, and look, for 110 bucks. I know, again, I said this in the last video, it's kind of crazy to think that 16 gigs of RAM for 110 bucks or so is a good deal, because 2 years ago it really wasn't a good deal. You get these for 80 bucks, even 70 bucks sometimes, but 110 for right now, this is a good price. If you were waiting for RAM prices to go down before you built your first PC, I'd say jump all over this. This is pretty much everything you could want in a kit of RAM, and this is going to be Aura, Asus Aura compatible. It's compatible with pretty much everything. I'm pretty sure you can sync it up with Asus Aura Sync. I'm pretty sure it works with Gigabyte software as well as MSI Mystic Light. So all you really have to do is plug these modules, these DIMMs, into a motherboard that's compatible with this stuff, and then you can control all the lighting via your motherboard software. You don't even need to download dedicated software for these modules, which I think is really convenient. It just saves space and time. You don't have to clutter your desktop with a ton of otherwise pointless applications. Okay, moving on to one of my favorite cases actually of all time. You guys know this one very well, the Fractal Design Meshify C. And the reason why I'm pointing this one out is because, well, you can see right here, 75 bucks for this case, a tempered glass version of this case. I'm pretty sure this was a while back, so I don't remember. I know the Define C had a non-tempered glass version at first, and then they came out with a tempered glass version. I don't know if the Meshify C... Yeah, it did. It did have a non-tempered glass version. Oh, well, I'm not sure if that answered my question. I wasn't sure if they had an acrylic version first. But anyway, tempered glass, I mean, this is basically the same price as a comparable acrylic version if they had one. So 75 bucks I think is a really good deal. Again, these usually retail for about $90 to $100, and you're going to get great airflow with this case. Again, the whole front panel is basically one big just slab of mesh. So you can stack fans up front. The only thing I would keep in mind when you buy this case, again, I've talked about this in my build logs with this case, also in some dedicated reviews of Fractal products in the past. This particular chassis is very narrow from a depth perspective. And so what I mean by that is if you plan on putting a really long graphics card into your system and then also maybe an AIO, which will require fans as well. So you've already got that much space taken up by your AIO and fans, and then your graphics card can't be too long, or you're going to have to either remove one fan from your AIO combo, or you're going to have to replace the graphics card with a much smaller one. That's something you don't really have to consider with most cases, but because the Fractal Design Meshify C is so compact, it's, again, something you will have to keep in mind. So, going back to this one, again, you could get the Meshify C, typical old TGE. You could also get, let's see, the Dark TGE. I never looked at these prices. Okay, cool. So these are all 75 bucks, it looks like. It says this one's sold out. Honestly, though, I like the transparent TGE better. I do not like the dark tempered glass, because then really all you can see inside are just the LEDs. You can't see any of the components. You guys want to show off that sexy hardware, not just the hardware LEDs. That's my take anyway, and that's why I recommend the non-tinted tempered glass version. So that's cool that that's the one in stock. Let me see, we have a Meshify C Mini Dark TGE. This one's basically the same price. There's just a little bit less, just slightly less materials go into the production of these. They're basically 2 slots or so smaller from a vertical perspective. And then we also have the white model. Oh, this is cool too. So if you guys want a white Meshify C, 75 bucks. I think that's a pretty good deal, especially if you want a more unique looking Meshify C, again, with that white exterior. The interior is still black for the most part, but you do get that beautiful white exterior. Save the grill in there. I actually think I'm gonna get one of these soon, just to build in it, because again, this is one of my favorite cases. It pretty much checks off all the boxes for me when it comes to full size, not full size, but ATX builds. Yeah, I think it'll look really good on camera too. Be a nice system to put in the background. Alright, so moving on to our last one here. We have the EVGA Supernova 1000 watt G1 Plus. This is definitely overkill for most builders out there. That's just my opinion. But if you are just looking for something that's going to be future-proof for friggin' generations, basically, 1000 watts is going to do that for you. It's going to run super quiet. Even under severe load, in most cases, you're not even going to peak 500 watts, which means this will probably be slightly inefficient for you, because, again, the efficiency curve for most of these units is around a 50% load. So if you're under 50%, let's say you're consuming 350 watts under a full load with gaming. Let's say you're gaming and rendering in the background. I don't know. Usually when you're gaming, you're not even consuming anywhere close to full system power, but let's just assume you're consuming 350. This will not be as efficient as it would be if you were consuming 500 watts of power. It's kind of hard to picture it that way. We do have videos talking about what power supply efficiencies actually mean. But if I had to ballpark it, I'd say that if you were consuming 350 watts of power, G1 80 Plus Gold, I believe, is 90% efficient, 92% efficient. I think this is under an optimal load of 500 watts, roughly. You're going to be around an 80, 85, well, it's probably a little higher than that. Close to 90% efficient, which is still really good. So if you're worried about that, and people are pretty, they're sticklers about this kind of stuff. And obviously this is, again, severe overkill, but it's a modular power supply. It's going to run pretty quiet. I trust EVGA power supplies for the most part. And this one, again, great reviews. They trust their products when they got 12-year warranties. It's typical. These are typically 10-year warranties, that's one of the reasons why I love EVGA power supplies. This is going to be a great unit for really anybody building a semi-new, semi-powerful system. I would even trust this in like a custom loop, with like $3,000 or $4,000 worth of gear. So that's just my take on it. But for $80, can't really go wrong. It's typically a roughly $200 power supply. So that's a heck of a steal. Let's see, 800 watt. Yeah, see, the 850 watt is more expensive. So like, it'd be stupid to buy this one and pay more than to get one that's capable of a higher wattage. The 75 watt is basically the same price as a 1000 watt. So again, buy the 1000 watt instead. And then the 650 watt is, again, basically the same price as a 1000 watts. So it just makes, it would be dumb, in my opinion, not to buy the higher wattage unit. So I would get this one. And for $80, again, you could pretty much swap this from system to system for years and not have a problem. Let's see, scrolling up. Kofasa says Corsair RMX, RMI if you want a really quiet power supply. Most of them, Kofasa, most of them are going to be really quiet power supplies. My EVGA P2s, for example, are dead silent. My Be Quiet power supplies, all of those are dead silent. I've had a couple Corsair power supplies. Those were, well, I had one that was cheaper that was pretty loud. But the more expensive one I had, I think it was actually, I actually think it was an RMX, if I'm not mistaken. That was a very quiet power supply as well. Most of them are going to be. If they're loud power supplies, you're going to know about it. I actually have a video coming up soon about a particular unit, actually from EVGA, that's a lot louder than I expected, and this is a pretty widespread issue we'll talk about. But I would say, yeah, again, this one here, as far as I know, G+, going to be a very quiet system, under load, even if you're not in that optimal peak efficiency range. So that is basically, in a nutshell, what I found that was super compelling for Cyber Monday. If I've been saying Black Friday instead, you guys know what I mean. I apologize. But I am all yours now. I'm looking at the chat, and if you guys have anything that you would like to add, anything you found that was really good, maybe I missed it. Again, I was looking at the screen for the most part. But I want you guys to share the knowledge if you're interested in doing that. We would appreciate it. We'll be able to throw a couple of these products up on screen for those who are eager to buy something within their price range, get a good deal. Nothing wrong with trying to find deals. Nothing wrong with that at all. Let's see, scrolling down here. I see Vadim Kavetsky. Hey, I actually bought a 34-inch 2560 1080 Alienware monitor. 34-inch, sorry. And it's great for gaming. Sadly, I got one with a defect, so I'm sending it for a refund on eBay and getting the LG 34UC89G, which has identical specs. My opinion on those, I have a 34-inch. Actually, this panel right here behind me, it's from Viatech. That's a 34-inch panel, and I'm not. I think when you get up to that size, I think you should try, if you can, within your budget, to jump up to the 1440p, 3440 panel. It's such a large screen, and I know that the 1080p, like the vertical aspect, is going to be the same whether you stretch it or not. But when you're talking about 2560 pixels across basically a 30-inch horizontal aspect, the resolution just really isn't there for me. The Viatech panel I have is a 34-inch panel, and it has, I want to say, I don't remember the PPI off the top of my head. But when I looked at a couple of the review samples from Best Buy that they have on display, they had one that was a 34-inch LG. I think it was almost probably the same one that you're talking about. I might be the one that Best Buy has on display. I got about 2 feet from it, and it just looked a little jagged to me. When you can kind of see the pixels there, it just tells me that the screen is a little too big. But again, if you have hardware that fits that resolution, let's say you have a graphics card that's perfect for 1080p, maybe not higher end 4K stuff or 1440p stuff, but a good 1080p sweet spot, maybe like a GTX 1060 or 1050 Ti or RX 560, 570, then I think that's a pretty good deal. If I would have done that, Vadim, I would have said drop it to 29 inches. I had a 29-inch 2560 by 1080, and that was a pretty good PPI for me. Not as high as I would like. Of course, nothing wrong with a higher PPI as long as you can drive those pixels. But nonetheless, that was just my preference there. I'm going to scroll up real quick. I think I missed a couple other super chats. Let's see here. Victress22, $5 New Zealand dollars, whatever, however much that is. I appreciate it. Victress is a good guy. He's always been supporting us. He's been pretty much every one of these live streams. Hey, Greg, keep trying to keep mine off of life at the moment. Found out last week my dad is dying from leukemia, my dude, and has less than 60 days to live. That is a freaking rough. That's rough, man. I didn't expect to read that just now, but I am sorry. Our prayers are with you, and we do hope your dad, hope he fares through it, man. That's tough. That sucks. My grandpa actually has leukemia. He's been doing all right recently. They put him on, I don't know if it was some experimental drug or whatever. The way I look at it is like, if you get a diagnosis like that, like, I'll try anything. I tell myself I don't want to go through chemo, blah blah blah. But like when you have a family, you have people you love, you don't want to leave them. Obviously, that's a tough thing to deal with. And God forbid I ever have to deal with something like that personally. I'd be open to anything. Worst case it doesn't work out, but at least you tried. I do hope that your dad has some access to things that could possibly cure him, could help him out. Again, 60 days to live. That's a tough diagnosis, though. It must be pretty severe from what it sounds like. Victress, I know you've reached out a couple times in Discord. I don't know if this pertains to the same thing. I know I saw a couple other comments from you in the Discord server. I'll talk to you one-on-one, dude. I wanna chat a little more with you about this and see what's going on. So if you want to hang out in the Discord after the live stream, I'm gonna pivot right on over to my personal rig behind me, and I'm gonna jump on Discord and have a chat with you. So if you got some time, I'd like to do that. I'd like to hear more about it. Just sometimes it helps to talk about it. So if that's something that we would like to do, think it would help, I'd love to sit down with you. So just let me know. Let's see. Vadim says terrible input lag. It's really bad on OLED. Yep. John, are there any SSD deals y'all know about? John literally just went through SSDs. Check out the links below to answer your question. Scrolling down. Let's see. So let's see. Warman 1324, $2 super chat. My dude, anyone used an OLED screen to game? Oh, that's where it came from. Good or bad? I think it really depends on the OLED. OLED screens are going to have higher input lag. It depends. But in general, they'll have higher input lag, especially when compared to something like a TN panel. But I'm not sure how severe that is going to be. It's just that's a tough. I don't know. I really like OLED screens, so I think they look really good. When it comes to phones, I basically can't choose a phone that doesn't have an OLED screen anymore, which is why I'm so glad that the Pixel 3 has an OLED screen. Because if it didn't, then I honestly, it'd be really tough for me to recommend. Just in 2018, it just makes more sense, especially for the mobile side of things. When you're streaming or whatever, if you have like the screen on always at night, like all that stuff is just complemented by an OLED panel. So that's my take on it. My name is Jeff at Science Studio. That's what's up, bro. That's why we come back. A little love and prayers go a long way, just like with the hurricane. That's right, my man. And to be honest, my parents, we've basically, I've helped them 3 or 4 times. Lisa and I go over there and try to help demo the house. It's basically completely gutted now. and they are living in a gutted house. It's crazy to think about. You know, if you had told me this was going to happen a year ago, I probably would have laughed, just because it's like, you know, I'm in my own little world, they're in their world, and it's like that stuff can't happen. You can't picture that stuff happening, but they're in it right now. Like, they are experiencing it firsthand. And then when you realize that it's not just them, it's like there's so many people living in the same under the same conditions right now, because their house was either completely wiped out or their roof got destroyed and everything inside flooded. That was something that I hinted at in my Satire Studio video regarding FEMA's response to Hurricane Michael. I talked about how my parents' house was going to be a total loss, and it was deemed a total loss by their insurance company, because the roof it had holes everywhere. And when you have holes in your roofs, then what happens is the water either floods your attic, and then your ceiling starts falling apart piece by piece, and then your flooring starts getting destroyed, and all the components and furniture on the floor gets destroyed. Or the water sinks down and follows the rafters, all the 2x4s, all the studs down into the walls. And when it sinks into the walls, then it gets soaked up by the insulation, and then the insulation gets all moldy, it gets nasty. It's literally unlivable, because if you did live in there, then you'd probably contract something pretty serious. And when we were gutting a couple rooms, I mean, the insulation was just so disgusting. It was all black and moldy and still damp, believe it or not, just because it's been sealed off from everything else in the environment, because it's sitting between brick and drywall, you know? So, yeah, it's tough. Okay, I didn't mean for this chat to turn super negative or anything. It's just, you know, that's the state of affairs right now. And I know that our city isn't the only city going through anything serious right now. I know that California's been through some serious wildfires in the past month or so. People totally lost everything there. I would argue that a fire is worse than a hurricane if the fire destroys literally everything in your home. At least in a hurricane, you got to an extent, you got a warning. You can get out. We didn't have much of a warning at all. In fact, we had a mandatory evacuation announced 2 days before the storm hit. So whether you want to call that enough time or not, to give you some context, people were still working in my city the night before the hurricane hit, because their employers either wouldn't let them go, or, I mean, you know, business is business. You're just living day by day, and when you're last minute told to get out of a city because a severe Category 5 hurricane is going to hit you, you know, it changes everything, and a lot of people can't keep up. That, or they just decide to brace it head on, you know, and try to save as much as they can. And then with a fire, you know, good gosh, how do you stop a huge wildfire? I can't imagine. I've never been in the middle of a wildfire. I hope I never am. But again, that's total destruction. I mean, how do you salvage stuff that's burned? Like, you can't do that. You might be able to salvage some stuff that's wet, that gets soaked by water, maybe ocean water, rainwater, whatever. But when it's burned by a fire, it's gone. And a lot of people lost a lot of things there. So again, keep all of those people, everyone affected by these storms, by these just natural disasters, even man-made events, just, you know, remember that people are going through some rough stuff, you know, and remember to be grateful for what you have. Even if you don't feel like you have a lot, you could probably have less than you have, and that's a reason to be grateful. So yeah, a little deep thought for the day from Science Studio, which I'm sure you don't hear very much. Yeah. Let's see. I want to see some good stuff, folks. Let's see. Brian Schultz at Science Studio. I've had a Fractal Node 202. You did a review, and I'm wondering if I can use that power supply in a normal ATX case. Will it fit? Okay, good question, Brian. Actually, those power supplies are SFX form factor, which means that they are not going to fit the conventional ATX mounting bracket, if you will, on the back of most ATX cases, assuming those cases support ATX power supplies. You will need an adapter. Basically, it's a bracket that connects the mounting points for a typical ATX power supply onto a small form factor power supply, an SFX power supply. So if you get that adapter, just type in ATX to SFX power supply bracket on like Newegg or Amazon. I'm sure you'll find something. Shouldn't be too expensive. It's just a piece of plastic or metal that kind of screws into your case, and that is how you can take that power supply and throw it into an ATX build. Good question, though. That's a really good question. Okay. Let's see. See some good stuff. Kofasa says buying a power supply that's twice as efficient twice as big as what you need is wasting your money because those are very inefficient at idle. Okay, Kafasa, I don't think you understand how inefficient it actually is. It's actually only maybe 2-3% less efficient as if you were running it under an optimal load. I invite you to watch our power efficiencies and what they mean, literally what they mean. We talk about the graphs, we translate every variable and how to interpret and determine how efficient your power supply is under any given load. They are not extremely inefficient if you're running them at 350 watts versus 500 watts, if you're talking about a $1,000 power supply. And most $1,000 power supplies are going to be 80 plus gold or higher, and the reason why is because if you have an 80 plus or something that's not even rated 80, then you're losing, you're basically, your net loss in power is that much greater because we're talking about higher power draw overall. So if you're pulling 500 watts from the wall, you might only be sending 400 watts to your system. Well, that's a pretty crappy conversion rate. It's only 80%. It's only 80% efficient. But if you're talking about 90% efficient with a 1,000 watt power supply, that's 100 watts or so, if assuming that you're pulling a full 1,000 watts. But if you're in the peak efficiency range there, roughly 500 watts, let's just assume for the sake of argument it's 500 watts, then what that means is if your system is drawing 500, then you're going to probably pull slightly more than 500 from the wall. You will pull more than 500 from the wall. No system is perfectly efficient. You're going to pull maybe, you could do this mathematically, but you're going to pull slightly more than that based on that efficiency factor. And again, it depends whether or not you have a gold or a platinum or a titanium or silver, bronze, it doesn't matter. It all varies. But I would not say that getting a power supply that's 1,000 watts is a waste of money, especially when they're cheaper than the lower wattage power supplies. To me, that's kind of a dumb thing to say. That's just my take on that. Look, if your system's only going to consume 150 watts of power, then please don't buy a 1,000 watt power supply. That's not what I'm saying, but you would be perfectly fine running a 1,000 watt power supply in a system that consumes 300 to 400 watts of power under an optimal load. That's all I'm saying there. I do it. I'm doing it right now on both of my machines, and I guarantee you I'm not losing much more. Unless their efficiencies went way out of whack since I installed them. It's perfectly fine. Not something to freak out about. And for that price, geez, that's a heck of a price for those. Let's see, Noctis, good question here. What are your thoughts on the i7-9700K? I will answer that question in a dedicated video very soon, my friend. Just stay tuned for that. I watched your video already. What I meant is that the efficiency plummets a lot under 20% because it might be 10 to 20%. Well, okay, yeah, Kofasa, but that assumes that you're only consuming 200 watts of power under load. Most systems are going to consume well over 200 watts of power. I wouldn't say they'll consume well over 300 watts of power. When you're gaming, probably not. I mean, you're probably going to be under, it depends again on your hardware, but I would say around 300 watts. But when you're, like I said, under 10%, yeah, sure, it's going to be super inefficient. That will put a lot of strain on your power supply, believe it or not advised. Maybe I read that out of context, but that's just, I just want to make sure that you guys understand. I'm not recommending you put a 1,000 watt power supply in a system that consumes 100 watts of power. That would be insane and dumb and probably unsafe. Anyway, let's see here. Jason says, I missed a super chat. Let me see, Jason. I got you, my dude. I got you. Jason Azevedo, I saw you waiting in the chat. Dude, you were waiting here like an hour and a half ago. Like, you were a trooper. I appreciate your diligence there, my dude. He says, I have an EVGA Supernova 750B 80 plus bronze power supply powering an 8700K and a 1080 Ti overclock. Would an 80 plus gold power supply be worthwhile upgrade? No, you could probably work this out mathematically. Again, I would need a piece of paper and pencil because I'm not a freaking genius. But the difference between 80 plus bronze and 80 plus gold, let me just do a quick Google search. I gotta refresh my memory. PSU efficiency 80 plus chart, just so I can kind of set this up for you. So 80 plus bronze, let's assume you have a 50% load. You have a 750 watt power supply and you're running an 8700K and a 1080 Ti overclocked. So you're going to consume around, let's say, 150 watts on your CPU and 250 on your 1080 Ti. That just throwing this out there. That's 400 watts. Let's say, for all intents and purposes, that 400 watts is half of your power supply's rated wattage. It's 750, but let's assume 800. So for an 80 plus bronze system, 80 plus bronze rating, that means that at 50%, you're going to be 85% efficient, right? So if you're drawing well, not drawing, but if your power supply is sending 400 watts to your components, then it's going to consume slightly more than that, right? And then if you are running on a gold system and you're at 90%, you're going to consume slightly less than that 80 plus bronze power supply from the wall. And that's assuming, again, that it is slightly more efficient, having the 80 plus gold rating over an 80 plus bronze. The difference there would be arguably, depending on how much you use your system, a few bucks a year, if that. I mean, maybe a few bucks a month. I might be over-exaggerating that. But I would say, no, it's not worth it in a nutshell. I probably should have just said that in the beginning. But if you're really wondering about the science behind it, all you got to do is just take the 80 plus rating, the efficiency at your load, and then do 1 minus the efficiency over the efficiency, or maybe it's the other way around, and then you can calculate how much power you're pulling from the wall for any given 80 plus rating, and then you can see the difference, the difference in wattage between each efficiency rating, and then you could decide that way. You'd probably have to run your system 24/7 for a few months before it ever became worth it from a price perspective, and that again is assuming that you could even resell your old power supply and get some of your money back to cut into your margins. So again, yeah, you could work this all out mathematically. I'm just saying that from my perspective up front, it's probably not worth it. I wouldn't freak out about it. Unless your system, unless your power supply is like really loud or something. Anyway, Sebastian keeps asking if I've used any Synology product. The answer is no, I have not. I don't even know what that is, to be frank. Let's see here. Bench Potato, have you ever used Amazon Warehouse? Recommend it. Not firsthand. I have not, although I know many people who have. Look, the fact is, I know the people that have used Amazon Warehouse are still using Amazon Warehouse, to an extent at least, and so that's probably saying something. What's up, Mr. KF Gaming? You were looking mighty fine with those 4 gold stars by your name. That's because he's a member. I do appreciate your membership, Mr. KF Gaming. You're one of the first members ever on Science Studio, and I will never, ever forget that, so thank you very much. David Hua, should I get a Vega 64 for $399? David, you should, we literally talked about this in our live stream, so you should probably check the video description. It's literally linked there as well. It's kind of fun. People, they literally say the same things we just talked about. I get it. He's new. It's okay. I know. Stressmaster at Science Studio. Don't buy Ultra anything. They basically closed their doors, and there is no warranty. Don't buy Ultra anything. I'm confused. What do you mean Ultra anything? That's weird. I think I read that out of context, possibly. I need you to clarify. Please clarify. John wants to know what my favorite color is. It's probably white. I'm just kidding. If I had to pick a legit color, not white, which is arguably a blend of every color, I would say it's tough. I think my favorite color is red, because red is powerful. It's provoking. You see people wear ties, guys are pretty serious about their ties, right? So you see a guy wearing a blue tie, well, he might be a nice guy. You see a guy wearing a red tie, ooh, he's important. That's just my first thought when I see a guy in a red tie. I'm like, okay, he's taking it seriously, If you see a guy in a blue tie or a purple tie or whatever, it just doesn't convey the same message to me. I think it just comes down to a psychological thing. But that's why they call red the power tie, when you have red ties. So that color, just because it is so powerful from that perspective, I'd have to say red. And that's probably cliche, because I'm sure a lot of people have red as their favorite color. But maybe I'm unique in the way that I express the fact that it's my favorite color, just to say. Let's see. Magic says dark purple is strong too, just like your desktop behind you. Purple is a good color, and I would say normally that purple is my favorite color, but the reason why I'm not saying that is because purple is, I think it depends on the shade of purple, right? I think a deeper purple, a more true tone, just hard purple, if you had to picture a hard purple, you would think a dark purple, right? I think that color is a really nice color. I'd probably choose that over any red. But when you think of red, apart from venturing into pink territory, which I think that just becomes pink at that point, you can turn from purple to violet, and then it just becomes less powerful in my opinion. And then when you look at red, you can have royal red, you can go darker with the red. All those reds are going to look really strong in my eyes, and that's probably why I think red is just overall a better pick. Just my thinking there. Let's see here. Josh asks, what monitor do I currently use? I currently use Viatech. I want to say it's a 34 GN34C. Oh gosh, I talked about it in a video a long time ago. It was about refresh rates, I want to say. But it's from Viatech. It's linked down below. I think if it's not linked down below in like the my tech stuff section, then I will do that after this live stream ends. But it's a really great panel. I also have an Asus PG27. I don't remember if it's PG27 something. Anyway, it's a 27-inch 165 Hz TN Asus panel with G-Sync, and it was one that I bought myself before I could get a lot of review samples and stuff. I was just spitting out money to buy all this crap, and I bought this panel for like, I want to say $800, $700. This was back when these panels first came out, and I wanted a serious gaming panel because I knew how beautiful higher refresh rate gaming was, and so I just bit the bullet. I got one of these. I was debating the IPS variant, but ultimately I was more concerned with the fluidity, right? And I knew TN was going to be slightly better in that regard. I wouldn't have as much of a to worry about with respect to ghosting and response time, so that was why I went with TN. And honestly, it's a really good TN panel. Actually, this panel right here that I'm looking at for the stream. But let's see, Hamad asked TN versus VA. Hamad, I have a video talking about that specifically. You guys ask a lot of good questions, but we have a lot of, I think, good videos on the channel in the Minute Science and Crash Course playlist that talk about a lot of this stuff. So if you want to check that out, I encourage you. I think you'll learn something. If you have that question, you might learn something new about the technologies and how they work. John Watson said the same thing, TN versus VA versus IPS. Literally a video on that topic. Let's see. Sebastian, have you used the mesh router? I used the Google Wi-Fi, Google Home, whatever they call it, the Google routers. I had a mesh network set up at my parents' house, and then when we moved into our old apartment, Lisa and I, we ditched the mesh network thing. There's no point. We don't really need a mesh because our apartment's pretty small. And then we moved into this place. Now I have fiber. And I'm just running the Asus router, or the Asus. I'm running the AT&T router right now, just because I was running it as a pass through to my Google Wi-Fi router, but it just doesn't. I mean, it wasn't doing anything for me. Actually, it was kind of choking on the connection because we're getting a gig up, gig down. I think it was a little too much for it, so we're just running straight up from the AT&T router, and I don't have any problems at all with it. And again, full coverage everywhere in the apartment. It's only like a 1,200 square foot apartment, so it's not very big, but it gets the job done for our, again, small space. So no need really for a no need for a mesh. Someone says you missed a super chat. I didn't miss a super chat, Legion. I was just talking. I will get to it right now. Q in Vegas donated $1.99 to the super chat. For some reason, Q in Vegas decided to short me 1 penny and make it an even $2. So I'm a little bitter about it right now. I'm just joking. He says, help, new build, gaming, editing, 8700K, 1080 Ti, 2K limit. I think you could probably work out. I mean, you could work out the rest of the details there. I'm not going to part through every single thing for you, but 8700K is definitely a good start. I think a 1080 Ti is definitely a good investment. I would choose that in my opinion. If you can get one cheaper than an RTX 2080, it's a better investment. Even though it's not the most up-to-date hardware, it's going to perform just fine in most games. And if you have a 2K budget, it depends on where you live. I'm assuming you live in the States because that's really the only price structure I understand right now. Get yourself a 700 watt power supply. Get yourself 16 gigs of RAM, like the RAM kit we have linked in the description. Buy that kit. Get yourself a Z370 motherboard that doesn't cost more than about $150. Most of the overclocking benefits with the higher end boards aren't going to really see themselves to fruition. It's just the power delivery and all that is really more relevant when it comes to the higher power draw CPUs, as in X299 and arguably 9900K territory. And then 1 terabyte hard drive, 250 or 500 gig SSD or M.2, and then a case, and that's totally subjective. And that's it. That's all you need. There's your system. I'm not gonna tell you specifically what to buy. Again, none of this stuff, by the way, that I've showed in this video or in this live stream, I wasn't paid to show any of it. I'm not. There's no sponsor in this video at all. This is just stuff that I found scrolling through that I think is a good deal. If I was in the market for any of this stuff, obviously this would be the first stuff I would buy because it's such. It's so compelling from a price perspective. So let's see. Brian Schultz, 1080 or 1080 Ti? It's kind of a vague question. I need to know the context. What games? What resolution? What settings? All that good stuff. It's too vague as it is. Let's see. Axel Soborg. Did I read that right? I totally probably butchered that last name. I'm sorry. Hey Greg, I've had soft tube water cooling before and recently went back to air, but now I want to water cool again. I have a 1070, an R7 1700. Is it worth going for a good hard tube water loop or not? The worth aspect of it, again, is kind of subjective. If you have the budget for it and you're into this stuff, you think it's really exciting, I don't think there's a problem with it. If you invest in the hardware, invest in the custom loop gear, then you're going to have, you're going to be able to recycle pretty much all your blocks unless something cracks or whatever. I've had blocks recycled. I've used like the same CPU blocks in like 7 builds, and they're all perfectly fine. Same with graphics card blocks. I have some graphics cards that are still on water blocks just because I haven't needed to use them, but if I want to use one of those cards in a custom loop, it's a piece of cake. So yeah, it's not really too big an issue. And then yeah, so if you're willing to bite the bullet up front on the price, you're going to spend in excess of $1,000 probably on water cooling gear if you want to go all out. But again, you can take that stuff and you can keep using it over and over. So all you have to do at that point basically is buy PETG tubing if you want to do hard tubing, or acrylic, whatever. I would argue in favor of PETG personally, and that's it. So from then on out, you could pretty much just, let your imagination run wild with respect to what you want to build there. So yeah, if you're debating it, if you have the budget for it, obviously you're probably that would make sense. If you're debating it, then yeah, I'd say go for it. EK, Alpha Cool, Primo Chill, BitPhoenix, any of those brands are really great. I've worked with all of them. So I wouldn't be worried too much with respect to who I go with, just how much I want to spend, and ultimately the bend, the loop itself, what I want it to look like, and the parts I want involved. Mr. KF Gaming, what's going on, my dude? Again, Mr. KF Gaming, I want to say this again. He was one of the first members ever on the channel, and I do appreciate his support. Membership costs like $5. You don't really get anything too exciting, but you get cool little badges next to your name that indicate your seniority, that you're a member. You can see Mr. KF Gaming has 4 stars next to his name. That means he's been a contributor on the channel for over 4 months, I want to say. It's over 4 months, which is really impressive, and I do appreciate that from the bottom of my heart, Mr. KF Gaming. And again, thank you for your super chat as well. $5 super chat. He says, I've been absent from the comments and live chats lately, so for my apology, take my money. Well, I've been taking your money already, Mr. KF Gaming. I do hope you feel like it is worth it. I don't do anything too special with the members, but I do try to call them out when I see them and thank them for just taking time to help us out financially. It really does go a long way. I think we only have like 20 or 30 members on the channel, so it's not like we're raking in dough, but it just gives me an opportunity to thank personally over and over the members when I see them, because it's just, like I said, it's not obligatory at all. There's something mandatory about it. It's just people who want to support us in that way. It is appreciated. Let's see. Hey Tor441 says, hello everyone. What is going on, my dude? Okay. Let's see here. Random Gamer, thanks. One more question. Any good deals on an i7 8700K? Not really. I think they're selling right now for like $350, slightly less than that. I think Newegg has them for like $335 or something along those lines, and Amazon is comparable. So this again ties partly into the inventory issues. The supply has been slightly shorted. Intel's been struggling with this for quite a while, which is why prices went up for a period of time for Intel CPUs. They've come down slightly, and they're kind of back at their like a fair price. But in my opinion, 8700K should be around $300. Slightly less than that would be a super sweet deal, but this is Intel we're talking about. I wouldn't expect anything crazy from them. Let's see. Jedi KV, any IPS FreeSync deals? You should check out my Black Friday video. It's the last video on the channel. And you should, yeah, I think you'll find a couple we talk about in there from Pixio, a brand that I've actually grown to love recently, because Pixio is, it's a company you've probably never heard of, but they actually make some pretty sweet panels, and I love the fact that you don't have ghosting or anything else of the sort, for the most part, when it comes to new Pixio panels. I haven't had an issue at all with them. We have a new member. What's going on? I don't know how to say that. Diver, that's cool. All right, that's a slightly awkward moment here, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now everyone else can see that you are a channel member, and you'll get a cool little badge next to your name now. I hope you feel special. And if there's any way, again, that I can make you guys feel a little more special, I know we have to add emotes and stuff. It's kind of like how Twitch does their thing. But if you guys have ideas for that kind of stuff, that would be appreciated. I can put something together. If someone else wants to put something together, then that would be cool. And then we could use those. You guys could post cool little emotes and stuff to make yourself stand out a little more from the chat. I think that would be a cool way, again, to just kind of differentiate you guys from the rest of the viewers. Although I do appreciate everyone watching right now. There's some 430 or so watching. I'm very thankful for all of you, especially on Sunday night / Monday, depending on where you live on planet Earth. Stressmaster, $5 super chat. Again, I appreciate that, Stressmaster. I saw your question earlier, but I didn't understand what you were asking. He says, used to be a Tiger Direct company, but was sold 3 times and is now closed. I've seen Ultra products for sale on Black Friday stuff. Oh gosh, yeah. Especially if you have to worry about. This is one of the issues with NCIX. I'm sure when NCIX went down, but if you buy a product right through that company and then that said company just gets dissolved or goes bankrupt or whatever, and they can't fulfill their obligations anymore as a company, then the buyers of those products are kind of SOL, because now you can't go back to the vendor for a refund or for an RMA or whatever. If you've had a rebate coming in through that company, good luck. I mean, good luck in general with rebates, but you know what I mean. And if the company is just being bought out by all these other companies and their reputation's just been kind of on the edge, I'm not sure with respect to Ultra, I haven't dealt specifically with them in a long time, then you probably want to shop elsewhere. That's probably the safe bet. Just something to consider. Let's see. Yep, exactly. Sai says, no service if the company closes. And that's a risk we all take. I mean, look, Amazon could go under tomorrow. I highly doubt that. But if Amazon did, and we all had Prime memberships, and we were like in the middle of watching a super killer series on Amazon Video, and we'd all be screwed, assuming their servers and all that were seized and liquidated and all that stuff. Yeah. Everything in life, to an extent, is a risk. It's just, how risky do you want to be in life, right? Let's see. Let's see here. Lisa, hey Lisa, what are you doing in the chat? She's supposed to be playing video games, but she's in the chat right now. That's right, Sebastian. Everything has a risk. Hamad Al-Shaiba, best, cheapest 144 Hz VA panel. I mean, you could just go on Amazon, type in 144 Hz VA, and then just sort from lowest to highest. That's one way you could do this, and just kind of work your way down toward products that have better reviews in general.
You're not reading my super chat.
You super chatted me? What?
You're not reading my super chat.
You didn't? Oh, you did super. I didn't see that. You super chatted me. Hey, Lisa said, why did you just gave ourselves money? Like,
yeah, did you read it?
Can we get a slushie from Sonic? Do you want to get a slushie from Sonic right now? She wants to get a slushie from Sonic. I think that's my cue. I think this is her way of telling me to get off the live stream now. We're having such a good time over here. You guys are asking good questions. As always, I saw a new member, Q in Vegas. I saw you asked a question earlier as well, Q. I do appreciate that. As a member, you will pretty much get badges and, like, that's really about it. But I want you guys to feel special. I want to give you guys personal shout outs. Maybe we'll do like members only live streams at some point when I have slightly more time on my hands and I'm not helping my parents so much and doing things with Lisa while she's here. But that's something that I want to do. And again, the more you guys do this, I feel even more compelled. I should feel compelled from the get-go, especially when it comes to people like KF Gaming. Cody Salak is our moderator. Spamming the Discord link right now. I'm glad he's doing that. You guys join the public Discord if you have not already. I do appreciate it. Again, Cody, you've been an awesome mod. So have you, Kafasa. You guys are always here, and I appreciate that. The Discord is public. It does not cost a single dime to join. It is shared by myself and Brian from Techie City. If you guys have not joined it, I encourage you to. There are great discussions going on over there. Every now and then as well, we jump on and play some video games. I mean, there's nothing wrong with video games, right? And if you guys want to play along with myself, or Lisa, or Brian, or Will, or whoever is on the live, not live, but whoever's on the Discord, that would be cool. That would be very cool of you. You would be a cool kid. So if you want to be a cool kid, click that link, and you guys can be cool kids. It's literally that easy. Yeah. Did Lisa just make her channel? She probably did just make her channel. I have no idea. If she didn't have a channel beforehand, then yeah, that would explain why she has no subs. If she did have a channel beforehand, then she probably didn't do anything on it, and that's why nobody knew who she was. But anyway, we're gonna be at Slushies now. You guys have been dope. I appreciate the memberships for those of you who joined. Run Buff Diver and Q in Vegas. You guys are awesome. I do hope you stick around. You can turn that big star into multiple stars if you decide to become renewing members of Science Studio. That is awesome. Again, I'll get some icons and emotes out soon. I know you guys deserve that stuff. I just need to get on the ball. Maybe I'll just open it up to you guys to create some cool stuff if you want to use them in the chats. For everyone watching right now, the roughly 400 or so of you, I appreciate it. For all the super chats, you guys are dope. It's again not obligatory at all. I always stream for at least an hour, and I know you guys got some Black Friday shopping to do, so I will let you get on to it. I'm going to prepare the live stream for its end. I always end these so awkwardly, but what can I say? Slushies are on the line, so we're gonna jump on that train. Hello, Sonic, which is down the road quite a ways, and it's been raining outside, so I'm not looking forward to that. Happy deals hunting, folks. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.